The distributive property can be used to help you multiply numbers easily in your head. And the idea behind the distributive property is you want to take one of your numbers and break it apart into two numbers that are going to be easy to multiply in your head. And a good rule of thumb is that you want a number that ends in 0 and a number that's less than 10, if possible. Now, sometimes, like with this decimal, it won't be possible. But if possible, that's what you want to do. So what that means is I'm going to leave my 6 the way it is. But 34, I'm going to break apart. And I'm going to break it into two numbers, one that ends in 0, a 30, and another number that's less than 10, which is 4. 30 plus 4 is equal to 34. So I really haven't changed this number at all. All I've done is change the way it looks. Now you got to think about this problem. This says 6 times 34. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 6, and the first thing I'm going to do is multiply it by 30. And then I'm going to multiply it by 4. Because if I multiply it by 30 and then multiply it by 4, it's the same as multiplying it by 34. Now, I broke it down to be a number that ends in 0, because 6 times 30, it's the same as thinking of 6 times 3, which is 18. But because it's 30, we know there's a 0 on the end here. So 6 times 30 is 180. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 6 and I'm going to multiply it by 4. Well, 6 times 4 is 24. So now, if I take these two products, the 180 and the 24, and I add them together, then I'll get my answer that I would have gotten if I had done 6 times 34. So 180 plus 24 is going to give me 204. Okay, you can do the same thing with 3-digit numbers too, except we have to break it down a little further. So again, I want numbers that end in 0, like 100 and 30, and a number that's less than 10, which would be 5. So 100 plus 30 plus 5 is the same as 135. So 4 times 135 is going to be the same as 4 times 100, which is 400, and the same as 4 times 30, which again, remember, 4 times 3 is 12, so 4 times 30 would just be 120. And finally, 4 times 5, which is 20. So I have 400 plus 120 plus 20, and if I add all those amounts up, 400 plus 120, that's going to be 520, plus 20 more would give me 540. So 4 times 135 is the same as 540. Now last but not least, we have this problem down here, which is a decimal. Now I can't break this into a number that ends in 0, but what I can do is I can break it apart to my whole number and my decimal number. So what I'm going to have here is 8 times 2 plus 3/10. So 2 and 3/10, I break it apart this way. Now, you might be thinking that's still hard to multiply in your head, but let's break this apart. 8 times 6 is going to be 8 times 2 is going to be 16. Now, when we go to multiply this decimal, 8 times 3/10, what we're really going to think about is, okay, 8 times 3/10 is the same as 8 times 3, which is 24. The only difference is 3/10 has one decimal point, one number after its decimal. So when I have my answer, I have one number after my decimal. So instead of it being 24, it's really 2.4. And then finally, I finish it off by just adding those together. 16 plus 2.4 is going to be 18.4. And remember, when you add decimals, you have to line up your decimal places. Okay, so when we do this, that's how we get our 18.4.